One Piece took the cover of the magazine this week with Luffy on the coolest snowboard possible. We also got a color spread of Dr. Vegapunk and his satellites. Vegapunk York is not a good person, but she is my favorite design here. One Piece Chapter 1101, Dear Bonnie, takes place 3 years ago in Luffy's East Blue hometown. A leg extended above the trees, as Kuma observed. With a gum-gum axe, Luffy tore apart the landscape. A tiger and crocodile were terrified. As Kuma watched the boy train, he recalled a certain encounter with his former leader. When Kuma was here with the Revolutionary Army, he mentioned the fact that dragons seemed pretty familiar with the island. In fact, when he went out for a bit of exercise, he noticed a young boy in a remote village. Dragon knew exactly who Kuma was talking about. His response was a grim one. He told Kuma that if he stays on the subject, he might as well kill the commander-in-chief himself. Kuma was confused. He turned to Dragon, but the man's expression became even darker. He explained that a child is their parents' weak spot. Kuma immediately realized his mistake. He apologized and promised to forget what he saw. It's nice to see Dragon express his care for Luffy like this. At this point, Kuma could completely understand Dragon's position as a fellow father. And it's not hard to imagine that Dragon would have needed to put some distance between himself and his son, given his position. To the point where Luffy didn't even know he had a dad until his adventures out at sea. So Dragon had a good reason not to come home from the store. Luffy was very happy with the results of his attack. He decided that he would save it as an epic finishing move against a strong enemy. But that would be after setting sail and getting his own crew. Luffy was 16 years old at this point. He insisted on being ready for when someone tried to take his crew away from him. And that turned out to be Arlong trying to take Nami away. The animals near him were still terrified, but Luffy made it clear that he does not eat weaklings. To interrupt Kuma's stalking of a teenager from behind the bushes was a Denden Mushi call. Luffy quickly turned to see the source, but by then, Kuma was already gone. Luffy's innate hockey abilities gave him a strange feeling for a moment. He came to the conclusion that there must still be some strong opponents left for him to beat before setting sail. So we kinda got baited by Kuma showing up here, but it still gives us some helpful insights. Kuma was told that some pirates ran away after raiding a local merchant ship. He was then ordered to destroy them. But instead of immediately dealing with the pirates, Kuma tended to the ship that was attacked and planned to take the wounded to a hospital. The government demanded to know what Kuma was doing. The people thanked him for saving them as the world government continued to blow up his line. But soon enough, Kuma approached the pirate vessel. And listen, if a man built like Kuma pulls up to you with a Jolly Roger like this, that is not a fight you want to have. Thankfully, these guys were smart enough to give everything back immediately. Kuma wrote to his beloved daughter Bonnie. He spoke of how beautiful the world was, to the point where pictures and books could never do it justice. With a smile, he longed to see hers as she experiences such incredible things for herself. Meanwhile, in the Sorbet Kingdom, Bonnie eagerly awaited her father's letters day after day after day. Her persistence was admirable. Kuma's friends assured her that her father must be very busy with work. Either that, or the delivery birds were messing up. But Bonnie insisted that her father promised to write her a ton of letters. Granny Connie chimed in by saying that Kuma's letters would need to travel a long way themselves. She assured the little girl that one would show up eventually. And just then, unbeknownst to them all, a delivery was made and received by Alpha. She accepted the newspaper and, quote, another heartwarming letter. So this was certainly not the first. She told one of the agents under her charge to place the item in the church's mailbox. Bonnie got excited as she hoped for a letter, but it was only the morning paper. Much to her disappointment. In reality, Kuma's letters were arriving in abundance. Bonnie's dad was sending her about 10 letters a month. Alpha wondered how the man even had this much to write about. She mocked the sentiment and tore the letter up. Now, you have to have a really ugly, shriveled up Grinch of a heart to do something like this. I can't be the only one who wants to know more about Cypherpull's trading process, because these people are just awful. Kuma wrote to Bonnie that she was probably sick of him saying it, but he loves her very much, and he vowed to write her again very soon. And oh man, I am so happy that Bonnie was able to eventually receive them through Kuma's memories. Now that I think about it, she must have also learned about her mom from all this too. Yikes. I'm surprised she didn't need more time to process the memories of her dad's entire lifetime. Sounds kinda heavy. Speaking of which, Bonnie transformed into a muscular form and wanted to spar instead of playing Jenga. And in my experience, a fight can definitely be expected after a heated game of Jenga. Alpha entered the church to administer Bonnie's medicine while they were in the middle of this. She was shocked, but before she knew it, Bonnie was normal-sized, and she assumed that she was just seeing things. Bonnie retched over how bitter the medicine was. Alpha insisted that the bitterness was a result of it working. But this sadistic agent just wanted to give her some horribly flavored placebo. For some reason, I just imagined this tasting like one of those chalky Flintstones vitamins from the early 2000s. Kuma's buddy wondered why they needed to hide Bonnie's devil fruit powers. Granny Connie insisted that it was the safer route for them not to expose all their tricks. Back on Egghead Island, Dr. Vegapunk had made a rather drastic change. All they needed to do now was lift his brain and lab using Sky Island clouds. And he even planned for things to be like this on Punk Hazard too. Stussy complimented the reduced size of his head. So Stussy's in this flashback too. At this point, the Egghead incident is looking like a big cast reunion. But yeah, the Doctor felt lighter than ever. And weirdly enough, it's only now that I realize how huge the space between Vegapunk's eyes and eyebrows are. Stussy mentioned the fact that Kuma would be losing his sense of individuality. She wondered which of them had the more unfortunate fate, a human that lacks free will or a clone that doesn't. But Dr. Vegapunk was not a fan of her words since, to him, she was just as human as anyone else. Kuma wondered what he should expect when his personality is erased. The Doctor decided to break things down. Kuma is already known for being totally obedient to the world government. But what would he do if he was commanded to kill a child? Kuma didn't respond. Vegapunk explained that Kuma would lose his memories and any empathy or humanity that would restrict him from fulfilling such a terrible order. But even still, Kuma would be able to keep some level of free will until the process was totally done. So Kuma would have one more year left. Soon after, Dr. Vegapunk noticed that Kuma was writing yet another letter. Kuma decided that he would write letters to Bonnie until he runs out of time. He believed that she deserves to know how he feels. He wanted to send her an entire lifetime's worth of love before the year was over. And this is such a beautiful sentiment to me. The tables have turned. Kuma pretty much made a deal with the devil to become terminally ill instead of Bonnie. Knowing that you're experiencing your final days and dedicating them to your child like this is peak fatherhood. This put a genuine smile on Stussy's face. It's a really sweet one that we've never seen from her before. She managed to still be a decent person despite being with Cypher Pole. By now, Bonnie was almost 9 years old. Kuma wondered how big she may have gotten and if she changed a lot. He didn't really know when she would receive this letter, but Kuma made sure to wish Bonnie happy birthday. He explained that he was at Dr. Vegapunk's lab and how busy things were there. Sometime later, in the church, everyone celebrated Bonnie's birthday. Even the kids who called her a vampire were there. The smile on her face was adorable. Granny Connie even made a super big pizza for her. She must have spoken highly of the one she had on Egghead Island. Later that night, when everyone was sleeping, Bonnie snuck over to the mailbox. But there was nothing. She spoke aloud to her dad, telling him that she's 9 years old now. She began to sob as she mentioned his promise to write her. And you know, maybe it's not on the same level as some of the other stuff from this flashback arc, but this is still really sad. Another 6 months passed without Bonnie receiving a single letter from her father. Over at the Revolutionary Army's Baltico headquarters, it was reported that Kuma came to rescue some of their forces yet again. When the Revolutionary Army was on the ropes somewhere, Kuma would appear to save them at the last minute many times. And afterwards, he would leave without saying anything. Dragon's response to this was that if Kuma doesn't want to be followed, they have to respect that. He was sure that Kuma must have his reasons for keeping them in the dark. Back in the church, Bonnie proudly proclaimed that she had been delivered! Cured. She pointed to her face and showed that her stones were gone. She could finally go outside. But Alpha refused to accept this. She had been told to keep the girl under strict surveillance until her 10th birthday. Bonnie called the woman a liar since Dr. Vegapunk said that she would be fine in only a year. And that was almost a year ago. But Alpha would not budge. Later, Granny Connie told the others that Alpha and her team were agents of the world government. A revelation that shocked everyone. Apparently, they let the truth slip out while getting drunk in town. It turns out that Bonnie's disease had been cured for a good while. The old woman was sure that they were missing something about this whole situation. She wondered why they would keep a healthy child trapped for an extra 6 months. And the idea of Kuma not sending his daughter any letters was just ridiculous. Bonnie agreed strongly with that part. Granny Connie had made preparations of her own and urged Bonnie to head for the port. She wanted the girl to sail the seas and go find her father. Bonnie wondered if she could really pull it off. Granny Connie let her know that Yo-Yo and the others weren't your usual fishermen. They were a strong group of troublemakers. She had no doubt that pirates and sea beasts alike would be overtaken by fear after seeing the men in action. They would also be there to help Bonnie find Kuma. The old woman let Alpha know that she was going back to the palace. But this old woman was Bonnie. She was finally in the outside world. She was amazed by everything. The dirt, grass, and of course, the floating ball of fire we call the sun. The people inside the church watched her with tears running down their faces. It was truly a miracle. Soon after, Bonney wasn't old anymore and was being called over to her new ship. She was happy to show Go-Go, Tots, and Potato that she was really outside. Meanwhile, inside the church, Alpha was looking for Bonney after seeing the queen leave. She was shocked by what she saw. Alpha was enraged by the old woman pretending to be Bonney. It was time for Bonney and her crew to set sail and find the treasure of a father's love. They even made the ship look like a pizza for her. In fact, the first thing we ever saw Bonney eat was a pizza. Alpha raced after the ship. She refused to let Bonney escape and promised to beat her to within an inch of her life. She was done pretending to be nice. She would happily keep Bonney as a true prisoner now. She used Geppo to close the distance and express her intentions to kill any accomplices. And I really hope that doesn't make things complicated for the queen. Bonney thought back to something she once asked her dad. She wanted to know what Nika looked like. He wasn't sure. Bonney jumped into the air to intercept the raging CP8 agent with distorted future. Her crew was shocked. Kuma told her that Nika's body was all rubbery and that there was no limit to what he could do in a fight. And with the power of a Nika future, Bonney hurled a hulking gear third fist at the Cypher Pole agent. Something that would truly happen for Luffy in the future against Rob Lucci. The world government would learn soon after that their hostage, Bonney, had escaped to find her father Kuma. And just like Luffy and the others, she and her crew would go on to become infamous pirates of the new era. Oh man, Bonney's devil fruit is incredible. The possibilities are truly endless. Being able to momentarily tap into the devil fruit powers of others is insane. And now that we know Bonney is just a little kid, it becomes even more impressive. And I'm hoping to see plenty more world government officials meet Nika's fist. As always, I'm Slice of Otaku. Thank you all so much for watching and have an awesome day. I love you.